Aerial view of a wide river surrounded by forest and sloping mountains. Two rivers meeting under rugged mountains.
The Yukon, a name known round the world for sheer wilderness, rugged adventure, gold, and grizzlies.
Precipitous mountains.
The Yukon Charley Rivers National Preserve protects 2.5 million acres here, where rivers meet.
Text, where rivers meet, Yukon Charley Rivers National Preserve. Water moving over smooth stones, looking up at a craggy mountain above.
A journey on these rivers passes through an ancient landscape. Nearly 800 million years of geologic history are exposed in a diverse, uniquely beautiful array of rock formations. Stunning cliffs, towering bluffs, hogbacks, graceful arches, and castle-like spires. Lying hidden in some of these rocks were valuable pockets of gold.
A black and white photo of two gold prospectors.
The discovery of gold here in 1901 brought a flood of miners, men and women, to the Yukon to stake their claims. Some of the richest placer deposits in Alaska were found in these parts.
Doug Beckstead.
The Klondike rush to Dawson was 1897, 1898. Gold was discovered in Nome in 1898, 1899, and a lot of the men that went to Dawson got there too late, couldn't stake any ground. Went to Nome, got there too late, couldn't stake any ground, and then came back here.
Moving around map.
The communities of miners on Coal Creek and Woodchopper Creek became stops on the Yukon Highway.
Paddle wheel boat.
At the height of the gold rush, more than 24 stern-wheelers plied the Yukon. Roadhouses were built every 20 miles or so. About a day's travel along the river, and had a distinctly Alaska flavor. According to one frequent visitor, the traveling judge James Wickersham, stew was prepared in a large kerosene can. Rabbit stew always simmered. As the hungry guest reduced its contents, more water, rabbit, caribou, bear, or lynx was added. We ate it and paid $2 each meal for it.
A large log house.
This roadhouse right here is Frank Slavin's roadhouse. It's pretty much a monument on the river here because of its size and its location. People who were traveling up and down the river, going different directions, could exchange news about things that were going on. It became kind of a social center.
Gold mining was hard labor. Gold was extracted by hand with pick, shovel, and sluice box. Most rushers quickly moved on. The hardy few who stayed formed a tight-knit group of people who enjoyed living in this extraordinary place.
Group portrait.
Those that stayed because they liked the lifestyle. And the gold was a way to continue living out here and living the way that they enjoyed. They either grew their own food, hunted for food, and then the gold was something that they could use to buy the supplies they couldn't get otherwise. They liked their isolation, but at the same time they had a community. There was nothing to walk 5 or 10 miles from your cabin to your neighbor's cabin just for a cup of tea, and then walk home the same day.
Men in suits next to machinery.
This small mining community entered the modern era in the 1930s when a gold dredging company bought up all the claims.
There were only a handful of men and women that stayed here at that point. So when the dredge came in and they bought up the claims, they actually made the money that they had hoped to make all along in one fell swoop.
The dredge was shipped in pieces from San Francisco and assembled on site. It quickly changed the landscape of Coal Creek.
The difference between dredging and an individual miner is an individual miner could process about 1 cubic yard of material a day with pick and shovel, sluice box. The dredge, every bucket on it takes up 4.5 feet of material. So they're literally processing thousands of yards every day.
In 25 years of operation, the dredge brought out $3.5 million worth of gold.
The Coal Creek dredge.
The Coal Creek dredge shut down by the company that built it in 1960. At that point, gold was still selling for $35 an ounce, and there was nothing on the horizon economically that indicated that it would go up any. It just became too expensive to run the dredge.
While the gold seekers came and went, the Han people, who have lived here for thousands of years, remain today.
Isaac Cunaby.
Han means people of the river. We can trace back early history to 6,000 to 7,000 years, but I think our people came here 30 to 40,000 years, which is more accurate. This is the homeland of the Han people. The land also means that it gives to the native people. It gives wild game, it gives food. Like we use the river to get our fish. We put up our fish, we can it, we freeze it, and we smoke dry.
Girl with fish.
We use the forest for our moose, caribou.
Moose in forest.
So you see, it means that the land provided for us to survive.
Han people have long dealt with short summers and harsh winters.
Sled dogs.
Today, travel in the preserve is still dependent on the season.
Sheet of snow.
In the bitterly cold winter of deep interior Alaska, rivers are frozen under as much as 6 feet of ice. Dog teams are still valued friends in traversing this landscape. Every year, the Yukon Quest dog sled race passes through the preserve and commemorates this time-honored mode of travel.
Team of dogs pulls a man on a sled. Ray of sun shines on the icy river.
Breakup on the Yukon is the last gasp of winter, giving way to the summer sun. The river is impassable until the giant sheets of ice fragment and move downstream.
Ice on water.
Hundreds of miles of ice are washed downriver in just a few days. With a free-flowing river, the best way to travel through the preserve is by boat.
Couple in a canoe.
Silty from glacial runoff, the Yukon is a giant of a river, running fast and smooth over widths of up to half a mile wide. This stretch of the Yukon attracts present-day explorers from around the world, drawn by the values of quiet wilderness.
Jennifer Steele.
Just the quiet will stick with me. Just the relaxing peacefulness of the whole river.
I've seen 2 black bears the first day I arrived, you know. Just to remember, yes, Yukon is that, don't forget.
Eric Petitlet.
The National Park Service maintains a network of public-use cabins along the Yukon, and in the timeless tradition of the North, makes them available to those who need them.
This cabin is really the story of this of the life of Yukon, and I will spend the night there, and I think in my dream I will be a trapper.
And Slavin's Roadhouse is once again a respite for weary travelers.
Sandra Klein, canoeist. Subtitles, we are paddling the Yukon from Whitehorse, from the very beginning of the Yukon to the end at Emmenak.
For a lucky few, Yukon Charley is also a place to work.
Speedboat.
Ranger Coral Conway patrols the Yukon.
I usually go out for about 10 days at a time and do patrols to check on visitor welfare.
Coral in her speedboat.
When I come out here, it's very relaxing. And to have that be a part of my job is really amazing. That I can have such a relaxing feeling while working. It's pretty rare.
Paddling a cataract with 2 canoes lashed together.
While most travelers in the preserve pass through on the Yukon, another remarkable float trip is down the Charley River.
Drops of water off of ice.
Fed by melting snow, the Charley's clear waters are born in the alpine highlands of the preserve and pass massive bluffs to reach forested lowlands and the river's confluence with the Yukon. Its entire watershed, over 1 million acres, is protected within the preserve.
A herd of caribou.
The Charley drainage is home to an extraordinary array of wildlife. Wolves roam the hillsides, often in search of the 40-mile caribou herd, which migrates through here. Both black and brown bears are also found in the Charley Basin. Some of the most commonly seen creatures along the creeks are peregrine falcons and Dall sheep, which share the bluffs and cliff tops.
A Dall sheep grazes.
Almost every time I floated the Charley, I've seen at least 20 Dall sheep. And it's just amazing where they can go on those steep cliffs. They make it seem so easy. They just gracefully hop up something that looks completely vertical.
A small plane taking off.
As part of her ranger duties, Coral regularly flies into the upper watershed and patrols the Charley by raft.
Gear on riverbank.
This trip will be a training patrol as she introduces the river to her colleagues Miles Stemp and Scott Thomas.
Rapids.
It's a place to come totally prepared. The Charley drops 30 feet a mile and can be a dangerous river. Navigating its boulders and rock gardens requires skill and determination. For those who make the trip, the river offers subtle rewards.
Sunlight shimmers off of flowing water. Purple flowers on the riverbank. A white tuft swaying in the breeze. Yellow flower blooming on a bush. Coral and her trainees float down the river in their rafts, paddling as they negotiate the currents and the rocks. A brilliant orange setting sun behind spruce trees. The group settles around a campfire on the banks of the river. The setting sun casts rays from behind the mountains, illuminating a few sparse clouds. The sun sets golden behind spruce trees, reflecting off the water. A man casts his fishing line, tempting a fish below the surface.
I really value the quiet, I think, most of all. The remoteness, the wildness of this area. There have been several trips where I haven't seen any other people on the Charley. And so you really feel like you have the whole river to yourself.
A man dives from his raft into the river.
To preserve the wilderness experience for others, Coral and her raft mates burn campfires on packable aluminum blankets and carefully check each campsite before leaving.
Coral loads gear onto the raft.
Though it's rare to meet other people on the Charley, sometimes another visitor to the preserve is encountered. Fire.
A wildfire rages on the mountain.
Every few years, serious fires rip through the spruce forests of Yukon Charley and change the landscape.
It actually, in a lot of ways, helps the ecosystem. The different vegetation will grow back. It'll provide better habitat for moose.
Moose in field.
And then eventually, years down the line, it'll go back to spruce trees.
A man floating the river looks up through his binoculars.
The Charley River corridor also attracts a wide variety of birds. One of the most common summer residents is the peregrine falcon.
So how many peregrines have we seen so far? I've counted 7. 7? Yeah.
Baby peregrines.
Yukon Charley is the highest density of nesting peregrine falcons in North America. The preserve was created in part to protect these powerful hunters.
There's a reason why Alaska and interior American peregrine falcons evolved the way they did. There's a reason they nest here and a reason they winter in South America. And it would take thousands of years to replace that. And so, yeah, I think it's important that we maintain these genetic purities in what we have with these subspecies.
Skip Ambrose has been monitoring the population's health in the preserve for over 30 years.
Skip climbs a
As
cliff.
part of his research, he removes infertile eggs from the nest to test for traces of chemical pollution.
I don't want to touch it with my hands because we have bug dope and all sorts of chemicals in our hands, so we'll just keep the egg clean of our possible contamination. We know what chemicals are in commercial tinfoil, so we can account for anything that's there.
Wraps egg in foil.
And we'll double wrap it in foil so we get no other contaminants from outside.
Peregrine chicks.
When I get down, I'll get marker and label our eggs, the location, date, time, lat long, all the pertinent information.
Peregrine falcons were put on the endangered species list in 1973 due to the effects of DDT.
Sprays chemicals.
And following the restrictions on DDT, they started to recover in the late 70s. So they're still increasing, and we really don't know the full extent of their decline because we really have never studied a healthy population. So they're at 52 pairs now. Their lowest was 11 pairs, so they were reduced by over 80%, and we still don't know for sure how many there'll be when it's fully recovered. Right now, the population is healthy.
Yukon Charley is uniquely suited to falcons.
There's great nesting habitat. There's a lot of cliffs along the river. There's abundant prey species.
Songbird.
And then the Yukon River itself is so wide, up to a half-mile wide in some places, that it's a great place over which the peregrines can hunt. In other words, the prey species have no place to hide.
The water's changing color already.
Oh yeah, look at that.
The breadth of the Yukon comes into view for Coral and her colleagues after a 7-day float down the Charley. Under a smoky midnight sky, memories of the trip flow freely.
Amazing. It was just beautiful. I found one of the best spots where in the mountainous areas where you just go through these amazing bluffs and you have bluffs on either side. It was just, it was just absolutely beautiful.
Miles Stemp, volunteer.
Those who journey on the rivers of Yukon Charley are deeply touched by this wild place.
Freedom, I think. Yes, just that. It's very, very difficult to explain the feeling you have here, you know. You have to come and see and live here to know the real feeling you have here. It's another world, I think, yeah.
People talk about, breath being taken away, and you see this mountainside, and you're just like, oh man, wow. And something you can't, take a picture of, and you can't, because it doesn't mean the same thing in the picture as it does in the moment.
Coral rafting.
When I look back on my time at Yukon Charley, I'm sure I'll have missed Yukon Charley. I want to come back and visit. It's just such a peaceful area.
Smooth river.
I think I will look back on my time as an adventurer and want to relive it.
Thanks to Pat Sanders, Doug Beckstead, Jennifer Steele, Jeff Galath, Sandra, and Thomas Klein, Scott Thomas, Lisa Oakley, Chief Isaac Unaby, Eric Petitlet, Coral Conway, Miles Stimp, and Yukon Charley Rivers National Preserve staff. Archival footage, National Geographic, Library of Congress, Cirque, others, scriptwriters, Donna Matrazo, Rory Banyard, Director of Photography, Daniel Zatz, sound recordist Spence Palermo, Editor, Ben Neves, Associate Producer, Chrissy Wesselo, HD Post, Mission Controlled, Producer Director, Rory Banyard. A North Shore production. Funded with service-wide recreation fee revenues collected from national park visitors around the country. Yukon Charley Rivers National Preserve. Copyright Alaska Natural History Association.